Cricket today on Ramadan Radio, Wolves 87.8 FM. You can interact with us on the studio by calling 01902 972 150 or WhatsApp message on 0744 042 0432. I pray all is going well for you in the second segment of Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower you all with blessings and reward us all for our good deeds and intentions. Ameen. Last week was my first ever radio station. I think I got away with it unscathed. Before I move on, I must say a good evening to my grandchildren, Azira and Zain, who will keenly be listening. It's the first thing I'll hear when I walk back home tonight. So a big shout out to them. Last week we talked about youth and what can be done to keep them connected, engaged, and what we try to show. And we try to show what we are involved with can be achieved if we have the right community setup or the right people involved. Moving on from that, this week I want to talk about cricket, and I think it's a great pathway for especially the South Asian community to get involved. And as you're aware, I'm very passionate about cricket and giving a pathway for youngsters to try and get involved. So my guest this week is the CEO of Staffordshire County Cricket Board, Jason Britton. Good evening, Jason.
Hi, Tariq.
How are you? Can you just bring the mic a little bit closer to you, mate? Because just lift the arm up. That's it. It's fine, mate. Cool. That's fine, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah. Nice trip down?
Yeah, not too bad. It makes a change not to get stuck in traffic, but yeah, got here in good time.
It does help when the kids are off school. So, Jason, tell me about yourself. Obviously, I know a little bit about you, quite heavily involved in cricket, but obviously a lot of my listeners... one, I don't think they'll have the knowledge of how much the board do, and two, the amount of roles you have to cover and the amount of things you have to look out for. So just tell us a little bit about yourself for one, and a bit of the roles that you do.
Okay, yeah. So as you mentioned, we're Staffordshire Cricket, so we are one of 39 county cricket boards in England and Wales. We are kind of the next level down, if you like, the local version of the national governing body, so the England and Wales Cricket Board. And our remit geographically covers kind of Staffordshire, as most people would know, so right from the top end near Leek. But we incorporate 3 of the 4 districts of the Black Country, so Sandwell, Walsall and Wolverhampton. And from a cricket perspective, Dudley, which makes up the fourth patch in the Black Country, that sits under Worcestershire from their perspective. As you said, Jason Britton, been involved with the county board now for nearly 15 years. It'll be 15 years next month, which seems like an awful long time. But been involved in the game for, crikey, something like 43, I guess. I played my first game for my club, Mere Heath, up in the North Staffs area when I was about 8.
Wow.
Same time I started to play at school, and I've stayed there ever since. So been with that club all the way through. So cricket's been massive in my life.
What's more massive, you're still at the same club this day and age. People move around like the change of the weather.
Absolutely, yeah. We have plenty of young players, 2021, and they've had 4 or 5 clubs in that space, which is kind of the way these days.
I know, shocking. I mean, I've played cricket like yourself. Played cricket for a long time, and I've played with youngsters. I played with their dads, and now I'm actually coaching their grandchildren. So it's like 3 generations on. Somebody put a comment on. We've got selection next week for our first round of games, and somebody said, "Tariq, I thought you were retiring." I said, "No, I've been brought back out of retirement. I'm playing for another year." And 3-4 of the kids piped up, said, "We'll be retired before Tariq is." It's just one of those things. You're either in it forever or in it for short term, ain't you? Sorry, you were saying, yeah.
No, absolutely right. And, that's part of what we're here to do. Part of our drive in the game is to create that lifelong association with the game, that people don't just dip out and do it for a couple of seasons, then go and do something else. We want people to have a link into the game, whether it's playing, officiating, scoring, being a member on the committee, volunteering in the game. There's plenty of jobs outside of just being involved with the bats and the balls. So really.
You've touched on a lot of roles there. I mean, cricket in layman's term for the average person is, I pack my kit, I'm turning up on Saturday morning, put my kit in the changing rooms, getting changed, I'm on the field, I'm playing, I'm batting or bowling.
Yeah.
But it's so much more to that, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people that that do exactly that. But when you think about what goes into the preparation of, start just with the pitch, the facilities, those facilities generally, we were quite lucky as a sport that we own a lot of facilities, or the clubs do. And they take some keeping, as you well know. They don't just kind of keep themselves running. The bills don't pay themselves, and there's a lot goes into keeping those clubs afloat to enable people to turn up and, as you say, just get the kit out and have a game.
Definitely. I mean, our target audience is mostly the South Asian community, and these are only my own opinions. I want to state straight off, this isn't it a county board opinion, or isn't my club opinion, or isn't the radio station's opinion. But do you think, from the South Asian community, I think we generally struggle to step up. One, because it's a volunteer role, and two, to take any form of responsibility. It's, I wouldn't say you've got to be a special person, but it does take a lot of your time. But you've got to be somebody who's prepared to put a lot of effort in. I'm involved in 91 clubs with the league administration that I do, and you can count on one hand of how many of them administrators are Asians, and I don't know where we go, because the next generation or two now, it's got even worse, because there's less and less people taking more and more important roles.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, Tariq, we have, and we always use this analogy, there are kind of less people wearing more hats at cricket clubs. So the list of jobs gets longer all the time, it really does. And the numbers of people putting their hands up to say, I'll volunteer, I'll do this, are getting fewer. It's a real concern, and the volunteer network it's the absolute lifeblood of the game. Without that, the game would just fall over. So it's critical that we get people in and around the game to support it. And that's, as I say, there's a myriad of roles now. There's plenty of roles that didn't exist when I was playing, when you first started playing. Social media, all these additional roles that can bring a younger profile into the club environment and get them more involved in volunteering, as much as the kind of the old school roles of secretary and treasurer and those sorts of things.
Yeah. I mean, you are right. The days of really old school committees have gone. You have to try and engage with the new generation or two. But it's a struggle, it's a struggle just getting, I wouldn't even say the right people in the right roles, we just get anybody to do any roles, and the club. And I guess that's the same up and down the country. But when you're trying to grow the game, we had a purple patch when players like Moeen Ali, Rashid, and there's a few first class cricketers, all good Asian cricketers, and there was good role models for a lot of cricketers, and we had an explosion of players. And I just think we've just gone the other way now. And there's not that many first-class Asian or South Asian cricketers coming through. And do you think that's going to be a fear for the game going forward?
Yeah, I think that if the game's going to thrive, it's got to be inclusive. There's no two ways about that, and that's inclusion not just as you talk about from a race perspective, but from a gender perspective as well. The women's and girls game is on a massive increase at the moment, and 30 years ago it just wasn't the case. And so we're working really hard to be as inclusive as we can for the game, to make the game more sustainable, because without that diversity, we've got a limited lifespan.
And people don't realise there is always roles going with Staffordshire cricket, and a lot of them are targeted at the South Asian community. Is there any current roles you want to talk about now that you're looking for?
Yeah, our team at the moment is about 20 strong, and that's a mix of full-time and part-time roles. And we've got about a 40-60 gender split. It was 50-50, female-male, not so very long ago. But the majority of those roles are outward-facing community coaching, schools coaching roles. And we're always looking for delivery support. So exactly that, coaching support, especially in the school network. And just because of the basic maths, really, in and around the Black Country, so where we are now in Wolverhampton, Walsall down the road, Sandwell just down the road, we've got big populations. We've got, the thick end of three-quarters, probably more now, I think, 750,000 people living in those areas. And so by that definition, we've got lots of schools, we've got lots of clubs, and therefore there's lots of demand for people to help us in terms of the delivery. We have to have some kind of set criteria in terms of standards, in terms of accreditation and being qualified and so on. Because obviously some of these coaches are going into school environments, so they've got to be DBS checked and appropriately qualified. But we're always looking for kind of casual coaching, as we call it.
where could they get more information from if they went onto your website?
Just contact us through social media. We're present on kind of all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. And we've got a website which is staffordshirecricket.co.uk, and our contact details are there. We've got an office in Stafford. We rent some space from the English Schools FA. They've got a building there that we rent some space from, so we're based there. And you can just get us via the telephone. Just Google us, you'll find us, and there's a contact number there.
Yeah, obviously being a coach myself, there's nothing more pleasing than bringing the new generation of cricketers through our grassroots. And you're right, at that level, it is absolutely booming. There's more than enough players. I think what it is when they get to 13, 14, 15, education, exams, they get to 18, 19, girlfriends, or they're getting married and they've got other options, and then all of a sudden they just peter away from the game.
Yeah, we've got lots of studies. The ECB conducted lots of studies to understand, the profiles within the game, and it was very clear 4 or 5 years ago that kind of 30%, give or take, of all cricket played, so the formal cricket on a kind of Saturday afternoon in the leagues, right down to playing on the beach on holiday, about 30% of all that cricket played was from the South Asian community. So there's as we all know, there's an absolute passion for the game. But as you say, life kicks in, and keeping certainly the younger players involved in our county setup, for example, when they get to 13, 14 and 15, it becomes more of a challenge. As I say, they get more distractions. There's the obvious draw of education and knuckling down for exams and that sort of stuff, which we try and balance off and make sure we're not impinging on that clearly. But yeah, as the boys and girls get older, it does become tricky to keep them involved in the game.
Definitely. But would you say, or would you agree with me when I say that's cricket, obviously we're talking about cricket, or any sport, does make a difference, especially as youngsters are growing up?
Yeah, absolutely, and I would say that. But I grew up playing rugby, cricket, football, team sports, and I think my time at school, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I wasn't massively academic when it came to the sharp end in terms of GCSEs and stuff, but I did okay. But I still maintain that the things I learned through playing all those sports has been as valuable as anything I learnt in the classroom. It's great for teamwork. It's great for resilience, being able to win and lose in the same way, magnanimously in both aspects is a massive life lesson, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I'm really grateful for what sport's given to me, and in particular cricket. I've been very fortunate now. I work in the game, and I still pinch myself on a daily basis that I'm lucky to say that. But I've met my wife as a result of playing cricket, or my social circle of cricketers and cricket people. I owe the game an awful lot, and it's brought an awful lot to me. Well,
yeah, and likewise, being involved for so long, you see a full circle, don't you? You from a youngster, you've gone through the full circle of playing at a high level, still playing competitive cricket, and then you become a member of your club, or you're part of the committee, or you're an officer, or you become a coach. So you see in a full circle, and then you bring the next generation or two. So I know exactly what you mean, and it is very, very fulfilling.
I don't know about playing at a high level from my point of view, but yeah, get your point.
Well, playing league cricket is a decent level, I guess. So we've talked about that there's a lot of uptake in the South Asian community. We're great starters. Every parent's dream is when their kids are young that they want to be professional cricketers. And as we've had this conversation many a time, a lot of people will connect with the local cricket clubs, get their children involved, and as they get a bit older, their demands increase. All of a sudden they think that their child's the best person at the club. Then they'll have a falling out, or then they fall away from it, or they're not. But what people don't realise is people develop slowly. So you might be very good at a certain age, and I think the ECB clocked onto this about 10, 12 years ago, because prior to that it was all eggs in one basket, is, somebody who's 15 now might be the best player, but somebody who's 16 or 17 might be struggling. However, by the time that 17-year-old's 18 or 19, he's going to be a lot better and improve more than the 15-year-old. So you have a lot of academy cricket, you have a lot of satellite committee, there's county setups, there's EPP programs. There's so much going on. Talk to us a little bit about all the programs you run for the county age groups.
I think the key thing is, Tariq, from our perspective, is giving as many opportunities. You've used that word, and that's it. We can talk through the age groups, and from the boys we run from under 10 through to 18s, from the girls 11 through to 18s. EPP, as you mentioned, that's the emerging player program. So they are the players that we think have got the the skills and the ability and the attitude to go on to a full career in the game potentially. But the key thing is that we don't close any doors. That we're very mindful that there are late developers in the game. I think some of the studies have shown that some of the best seam bowlers in the world don't kind of meet their performance maturity till they're in their mid to late 20s. But we're looking at children between 10 and 18 and trying to make a decision on whether they'll be of that ilk further down. So there's a little bit of guesswork in there because beyond that they'll develop at different rates. But the important thing is for us that we keep lots of entry points into the performance pathway open. But remembering that we don't just do performance pathway. There is that world where we're trying to develop the talent within the county to become professional cricketers, both boys and girls, and the opportunities for girls now are far, far more than they've ever been with the Central Spark set up in the West Midlands. But also, if you just want to play casually on a weekend or a midweek or a late night format because that suits your working practices, we want to make sure that offer and that opportunity is there as well, because not everybody's going to go and play for the county team. But there's another world out there as well, on a more informal basis, in a more easily accessible format, if you like.
So do you think Staffordshire are going to get the next first class All England player? Anybody on the horizon?
We funnily enough, we've just submitted some reports, I suppose, articles for some of the local press, and we've included in that some of the guys who are progressing forward. So there's a young lad called Sam Atkinson who's just signed an academy contract with Warwickshire. We have a kind of formal link with Warwickshire as a first class county. And some of our girls are progressing through as well with academy contracts at Central Spark. So Davina Perrin, who grew up just down the road from here, she was out in South Africa with the England under-19s playing in the recent World Cup. So we've got some stars of the making, I would suggest, and the group certainly wants to keep our eye on. Yeah,
I think all the stuff. I'm involved in quite a few projects and do Chance to Shine, the MCC stuff. I've just run a course at Technical College for some budding coaches, and I put the cricket side of it on. And in my lifetime, if I want to achieve anything through cricket, is to see somebody come through to the first class game that I gave that grassroots start to, and it'd be so fulfilling to see that. We try, we get through hundreds and hundreds of players over the years, and God willing, one day we will.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It won't be for the lack of trying. That's for certain.
Definitely.
We, as I say, the mantra for us is to try and create the right environments and the best opportunities for people to progress. We can't do it all for them. There's an element they've got to bring to the table as well. But yeah, we'll certainly provide the best opportunity, the best environment to help them through.
Cool. Just going back to the South Asian community, just mindful that the majority of our listeners will be connected with that. Do you think the game's grown enough for the South Asian community, or is there still scope to grow? Just before you answer that, for me, I don't think we have enough chairmen, treasurers, committee men, administrators. We've got so many players who want to turn up and play, but unless we get all of these other roles fulfilled, we're never going to be able to be successful South Asian cricketers, because there's no cricket grounds available anymore. You can't just wake up one day and say, I want to set up a cricket club, and expect to be challenging with the bigger clubs within Staffordshire. And I don't know, what do you do to try and get more of them people on board?
I think there's a kind of phrase that gets bandied around at the moment, and it's if you can't be it if you can't see it. And I think we have to kind of showcase the diversity that does exist within the game. You talked about volunteering just a little bit earlier on, and I think there's still a reluctance from some clubs to even ask for support. They'll all tell you how busy they are and how their list of jobs gets longer, but when you say, have you tried to bring in new members, new volunteers to help you, they kind of sheepishly say, no, we haven't. There's a role maybe for some of the clubs as well who've got to be a bit more forward in asking for support. But also I think, I'm very mindful, and we've spoken about this an awful lot. For example, when we're trying to advertise positions like the casual coaches we've just referred to, we use our kind of network, which is our website and our social media, but is that getting into the right places? Is that getting to the communities that we really want to go and serve better from a cricket perspective? And to help that, to have coaches coming from those communities, would move us forward massively.
Oh, yeah. It comes down to role models, isn't it? And if there's a good coach and he's helped somebody progress, or he's put him on the pathway to becoming a good cricketer, and that, he's going to become a role model for that community, isn't he? And the more people you can get involved, the more role models you can get in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always going to help. But the thing is, how do we get these people to there? And that's always that's always the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?
Mm.
And just before we move on, remind the listeners you are listening to Radio Ramadan on 87.8. You can listen to us via Facebook on Ramadan Radio Wolves, Twitter Ramadan Radio, or Instagram. You can call in the show on 01902722150 or 044 042 0432, WhatsApp, call or messages. We touched earlier on about grounds. I mean, I play at a club that's quite a reputable club, been around since 1835. Is there actually many grounds up and down the country, actually new clubs developing, or is it just the same clubs rebranding or merging with each other? Or
Yeah, I don't think it's quite, you know, I would say if there was a balance one way or the other, it's definitely more towards mergers. We're getting clubs coming together, but we do still see the odd one coming and, you know, being set up and created effectively from brass tacks. But yeah, there's definitely a coming together. Again, partly due to, you know, in some respects some player numbers, but also the administration. So, you know, there may be two sites that are being operated completely separately, but they're running thin on volunteers and they just need the extra support. So they maintain a kind of a playing distance, if you like, and remain some call on the badge, if you like, and the brand of the particular team. But they're having to share resource with neighbouring clubs just to help with the administration and keeping doors open.
Cool. Touched earlier on about girls, and it's a massive at the moment. Disability cricket, girls cricket. I mean, I know in Wolverhampton there's no club, probably other than the bigger 4 or 5 clubs that are in Wolverhampton, that run girls teams. So if you want to play as a girl, you want to play cricket as a young child, you're very limited where you go. I don't think we've got that feeling where you have to come from the right school, have to come from the right area. I think we're past all of that. You know, it's open to anybody. But the South Asian community, I mean, some listeners might not agree whether they agree with doing sport or not, but culturally, there's a lot more barriers for us as Asians, especially the Muslim community. And we're just waiting, well, I'm waiting for somebody to put their hand up and say, look, we're going to have a Muslim girls team only, just to start with, so we just can break them shackles, get them involved and stuff, so they can turn up looking different than everybody else. And then slowly, that may build from, you know, them integrating into other clubs and giving them a chance. Do you think that is actually possible?
Yeah, I think we have to be flexible as a sport. You know, that there's the kind of Friday night is junior night scenario, and I know that doesn't always work well, and it crosses over with prayers and study and so on. It's a difficult environment to get right. But what I think we have to do as a game is to be, again, more open, more considerate in our planning, more conversation, so that we're more informed about exactly what you've said there, understanding some of the challenges or the barriers that may exist for people, you know, accessing our game, and then work with that and finding ways to work around it or work with it or work differently to make sure that door opens in a different way.
Definitely. Right, where's that 24 minutes gone? Wow. We're down to 30 seconds. That's absolutely flown, and I haven't even got page 1. I've got 8 pages to talk about. I don't think I'm going to get through them. So we're just going to come up to an ad break in a minute, and I am going to touch on this, and it's probably a difficult subject, but it's something that I did want to speak to you about, Mr. Rafiq and the goings on. So just after the break, do you mind if I have a quick chat about that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, guys, we're just going to go up to a break in 10 seconds. Thank you for listening. Like I said, if you want to get involved, you can call the show on 0744 4042 0432, or you can WhatsApp messages. See you the other side of the break.